Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving right in to unpack the psychological and structural secrets behind truly unforgettable design. Whether you're a seasoned professional graphic designer looking to sharpen your edge, or an aspiring student eager to build a rock-solid foundation, you are absolutely in the right place. We aren't just looking at pretty pictures today, we're breaking down the literal architecture of aesthetic identity.
I want you to really think about this for a second. Why do some designs become instantly iconic, while others, well, they're just completely forgotten? It's kind of the ultimate puzzle in our field, right? Obviously, our main job is always to meet the specific requirements of a project, but doing so in a completely unique way, that's the real goal. So, how do we take our work from merely functional to absolutely unforgettable? Let's figure that out.
Okay, here's our toolkit for today. We're going to cover 5 essential strategies: the power of uniqueness, rigorous research and testing, building aesthetic consistency, the principle of closure, and designing distinct subspaces. Let's just jump right in.
Starting off with Section 1, the power of uniqueness and the psychology of standing out. Let's look at the cognitive science behind why our brains literally crave distinctiveness in the world around us.
All right, the absolute foundation of this is something called the von Restorff Effect. Basically, this is a cognitive bias that explains exactly why unique elements grab our attention so fast and stick in our memory like glue. Distinctiveness really just comes down to how different a piece of information is compared to its surrounding context. Because unique elements actively break the mold and stand out from the baseline, our brains just naturally process and retain them way better.
So when you put an atypical design right next to a giant sea of common, everyday ones, you create this massive contrast that triggers that psychological response. To actually leverage the von Restorff effect, you have to make your design noticeably different from the competition. We're talking unique branding, weird packaging, unusual ad campaigns, or even just atypical words and images. You have to pull the viewer out of their expected context. That's how you demand their attention and guarantee long-term recognition.
Moving on to Section 2, rigorous research and testing, the blueprint for innovation. Now that we know the psychology, we have to ground this theory in the actual, roll-up-your-sleeves, hard work it takes to succeed.
Look, excellent design is rarely an accident. Seriously, it's almost never a fluke. It is systematically built through a really rigorous 4-step development cycle. First up, you have to research existing or analogous solutions to understand the landscape. Second, actively brainstorm with a super diverse group of people, get those fresh perspectives. Third, prototype, prototype, prototype. Get those ideas into reality. And fourth, commit to testing, tuning, and iterating. This cycle right here is the true engine of innovation.
And you know, context matters immensely here. If you find yourself working in what we call an unstable environment, meaning an industry, an app, or a medium that doesn't really have established rules yet, you've hit the absolute jackpot. These environments are a massive blank canvas. Because the rules haven't been rigidly set in stone, audiences in these spaces are going to be incredibly receptive to major innovations and wild experimentation.
All right, Section 3, building aesthetic consistency, the irony of uniformity. This is where we hit a really fascinating paradox about how to stand out in a crowded market.
So, I know we literally just talked about the need to be atypical, but here is the irony of uniformity. Strict aesthetic consistency is actually your best tool for forging a unique identity. Applying specific styles, fonts, colors, and graphics over and over doesn't make you boring. It makes you distinct. By playing strictly by your own visual rules, it's like you're building your own recognizable island in a giant ocean of chaos.
This kind of rigid consistency gives you 3 massive benefits. First, it instantly enhances recognition. By showing the exact same visual elements repeatedly, your audience's brain doesn't have to work as hard to identify you. Second, it sets emotional expectations. It tells people exactly how they should feel before they even click or buy. And third, it visually groups products together, instantly communicating that they belong to the same brand family.
Let's look at Mercedes-Benz out in the real world. They establish an incredibly powerful identity just by consistently featuring that iconic logo on the hood or grille of their cars. That relentless consistency does so much heavy lifting. It makes the vehicles instantly recognizable on the road, it intrinsically links the brand to quality and prestige, and it sets a firm expectation that this car should be admired. It's an absolute masterclass in using consistency to stand out.
Which brings us to Section 4, the principle of closure and engaging the subconscious. Let's see how we can use human psychology to create a much deeper emotional resonance with our audience.
I have a question for you. What actually happens in your brain when the design gives you less visual complexity instead of more?
As designers, our gut instinct is usually to add more stuff, to explain everything. But what if we do the exact opposite?
Well, the answer lies in the principle of closure. By intentionally stripping away visual complexity and deliberately leaving information out, you're actually forcing the audience to participate subconsciously. Our brains absolutely hate an unfinished pattern, right? We just naturally want to fill in the gaps. So, when you leave those gaps open, your viewer's mind rushes in to finish the picture. That makes the design uniquely engaging because the audience is literally co-creating the experience with you.
Comic books are actually a perfect example of this in action. When a comic book author skips the transition between one panel and the next, you, the reader, have to supply that missing action in your own head. You're creating a unique combination of information provided by both the creator and yourself. It isn't just a design anymore, it's a shared experience, and that makes it vastly more memorable.
Finally, Section 5, Designing Distinct Subspaces, Navigating the Experience. Let's zoom out from an individual graphic elements and talk about how people navigate through entire environments, whether that's a complex app interface or a massive physical building.
If you're tasked with organizing a massive, overwhelming space, you have to strategically break it down. The trick is to divide these giant spaces into distinct, much smaller parts. You do this by setting up highly visible landmarks and using super clear, consistent signage everywhere. It takes a daunting, terrifying journey and chops it up into manageable chunks for the user. These smaller areas, these unique subspaces, act like psychological anchors. By giving each little zone its own memorable identity, you're giving the user massive orientation cues. They always know exactly where they are relative to the whole thing. And honestly, preventing your user from ever feeling lost, frustrated, or overwhelmed, that is the hallmark of a phenomenal design experience.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to challenge how you approach your very next project. Ask yourself, are your current designs just checking the boxes and meeting the basic specs? Or are you actively, strategically leveraging these tools, the von Restorff Effect, rigorous testing, aesthetic consistency, closure, and distinct subspaces to ensure your work becomes genuinely unforgettable? The tools are all right here. Now it's on you to build something iconic. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep designing with purpose.